Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. It is the Michael Dukes Show for Hump Day, middle of the week, downhill slide. Firearms Friday can be seen from here. We are ready to go. Are you ready already? It's just time to do our thing here, to get jiggy with it, so to speak. I don't know where that came from. I really don't. Anyway, welcome to the program for Wednesday, and we are ready to go. In hour one this morning, we're going to cover some of the headlines and talk about some of the falderall, some of the stuff that's going on out there in the world of politics. And just some of the stuff that's happening out there. We're going to go over that here this morning, and we'll talk about some of the events that are going on as well, including a big event this weekend. And we're going to cover that. In hour two, we'll be joined by State Representative Mia Costello from House District 15. She'll be coming on board to talk with us and to comment about some of the things that I'm sure that we've been diving into as well here this morning. And we'll have a full boat with her tomorrow on the program. We're going to talk with Chris and Jim from the Fair Association. Chris Miller, Jim Sturs from the Fairgrounds. The Kenai Peninsula Fair Board has got a big event going on, which I want to talk about as well, because, I'm going to be the MC for their big event, and it should be a fun time this weekend up in Nikiski. So if you are, in Ninilchik, one of the N words, one of the N towns, Ninilchik, Nikiski, Nikolaevsk, they're all the same, right? No, in Ninilchik this weekend, we're gonna be jumping in on that and talking about it. This weekend, it's a big 4-course gala dinner. We're going to talk about that here in a second as well. So tomorrow, Jim and Chris will be with us, and then in hour two, we're going to talk to Sal Mercogliano, who runs the YouTube channel. That is all about shipping. Today in shipping. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot it talks about shipping. And it talks about boats, and it talks about the shipping industry and trade and so much more. And Sal has got kind of the whole rundown about what's going on with the Jones Act and so much more. So we're going to talk with him tomorrow, and we're going to be all over that and get a full rundown from him and his take on everything that's happening. It's called What's Going On with Shipping. And that's the name of his company, or his YouTube channel. And we're going to dive into it. And he's got a brand new video that came out just a few days ago, which hopefully we'll have a discussion on. And that is his latest video or one of his latest videos, says the U.S. has gas. They now have a liquefied natural gas tanker in its fleet. It's called the MV American Energy. And so I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. It is the latest and greatest new LNG tanker built for America. So we'll talk about that and all the Jones Act stuff and more. So it should be a fun conversation to talk with Sal tomorrow in the 7 o'clock hour. Again, he's the What's Going On with Shipping guy. And then Friday, of course, is Firearms Friday. So that's what's going on. There you go. What's going on with shipping? All right. So what do we want to dive into this morning? Well, I guess first things first, we'll take care. Let's talk about the fun stuff first, shall we? I guess we'll do that first. First things first. So we've got the Kenai Peninsula Fair Board is inviting you out to the Golden Gatsby Gala. It's a 4-course dinner fundraiser taking place in Ninilchik. It's going on this Saturday from 6 to 9 p.m. There's going to be live music. It's going to be a speakeasy. Going to be a 4-course dinner provided by the cannery, the Green Can down here. And it's going to have a live and silent auction, and all proceeds are going to benefit the Kenai Peninsula Fair. And they're going to be honoring Laura McGinnis for her 20 years of deep commitments and relentless effort to the fair and the community. She's going to be taking a leave of absence here. And so they want to honor her. She's going to be if she will be there as well. And it's going to be fun. The theme is a roaring 20s. The roaring 20s. So if you got a flapper dress hanging in the closet, or a tuxedo, or, a monocle and a top hat, I'm just trying to think of things that are, that are the Golden Gatsby era kind of attire. I don't have any of those things, especially the flapper dress, but I don't have any of those things. But dressing up is encouraged. It's not required, but it should be fun. I'm going to be the MC and the auctioneer for the auctions for the Gatsby Gala. And if you would like to, if you'd like to get some tickets, you can go over to Eventbrite and just type in the Golden Gatsby Gala, or you can, if you're watching on video, you can scan the code on the screen, because I've got the code up on the screen there. It's a little QR code. Use your camera and buy yourself some tickets. And if you want to do that, and you could probably sit at the table with Terry and I, as we because we're going to be there eating dinner, and we could hang out. It would be it would be a fun time to do it. And no, Brian, I would never admit on the radio to owning a flapper dress. I mean, first of all, weird, but and even if it was anyway, so go check it out. Again, you can go to the Kenai Peninsula Fairgrounds Facebook page, and you can get your tickets there as well. I'll drop a link in the chat room for those who may want to go do that. This is going to be a fun time, and I hope to see some of you out there. Come out, say hi to me, but also, of course, help support one of the big local events and the local community functions there at the Kenai Peninsula Fair up in Ninilchik. So again, this Saturday, 6 to 9 p.m., $50 per person, and go out there and enjoy it. It'll be a fun time. Will be had by all, is what I'm saying. Guaranteed. So be part of it this weekend. All right. What are the headlines? Well, I mean, okay, big kudos for now to Sean McGuire over at the ADN. He has written a lengthy piece about the deficit that is faced here in the state of Alaska. And I mean, to which I'm happy to say,
welcome to the party, pal.
I mean, we've been talking about this. We've been talking about this for a long time, and all of a sudden, here we are 2 months into the session, and it's just like all of a sudden they've realized, oh my gosh, there's a deficit. Oh my God, did you know? Did you see this coming? Did you know that this is what's going to happen? And then this new revenue projection from the spring revenue forecast, of course, cut even deeper into the deficit that we knew was coming. But all of a sudden, seems to be like, did you know that this was? I'm shocked. I tell you that there was a possible deficit. I'm shocked. And by the way, it seems like they're truly soft selling the amount of the deficit. They're talking about only $200 million in deficit this year, with another $500 million next year. So about 680 million, 700 million in deficit is all that they're talking about. But if you look at the true numbers, if you look at what is been spent, if you look at what the spending plan is for right now and the different priorities that they're laying out there, this is over $1 billion. It's over $1 billion over the next 2 fiscal years. And in fact, I think if they got everything that they wanted, we're talking about somewhere closer to $1.3, $1.4 billion. And they just don't know what to do. Just don't know what to do. They're facing tough budget choices this year, is what the article says. The annual PFD is competing against widespread calls to substantially increase school funding. Now, there's 2 trains of thought here. On the Senate side, they're looking for new revenue measures. So, i.e., taxes. They've got a bill that would increase oil taxes. They've got this bill that would tax some of the out-of-state businesses that are online businesses. Again, I agree with Rob Myers's analysis of this, is that all of these taxes that they're talking about are kind of hidden from the public because they don't hit the people specifically, right? It's mostly, outside businesses, online businesses, et cetera, et cetera. But on the other side, Sean is saying that the Alaska House is not a fan. They're going to take it. They just want the PFD. That's what it comes down to. And here's what I love about this, because they are taking advantage of, well, the House majority, and I'm looking at Chuck Kopp's name here in the article to begin with, is taking advantage of both sides of the aisle at this point, or both sides of the minority-majority divide, because the 16 House members penned an opinion piece in the Daily News here recently that opposed any tax hikes in the state of Alaska. Mia, Jeremy, Pop Bynum, Julie Colomb, Bill Elam, Delana Johnson, Alexi Moore, David Nelson, Prax, Rauscher, Ruffridge, Sadler, Schwanke, Tomaszewski, Jubilee Underwood, and our own Sarah Vance. They all say, we don't want new taxes. That's what they're saying. And Chuck Kopp, he joined the minority in opposing those tax measures and signed on to this letter. But then in an interview, he says the legislature should prioritize core spending, but shouldn't. He said, I'm not committed to raising revenue to pay a dividend. See what he did there? He went in there and he leveraged what the minority was doing and then used it to make this false equivocation argument of I'm not raising revenue to pay a dividend. See, that's not what it is. What you're doing is you're overspending and you're spending the dividend. Any revenues raised would go to pay these other services that you should have. Oh, see what they're doing there? Can you see that he's staking out both? I mean, he's having his cake and eating it too. I mean, politically, it's genius because he's aligning himself with the minority in this case, leveraging that power for the conservative side, and then saying, I'm not committed to raising revenue to pay a dividend. Never knowing that folks never arguing back that, well, we should live within our means and the dividend should be part of that, which means if you're raising new revenue, you're using it to pay for new spending, not the PFD, but. All right, we're going to continue in a moment. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Oh, man. I just don't know. Just don't know what to say at this point. Oh, I did not watch the Kevin just said. By the way, I hope some of you come out and see me this weekend. I hope you come out and support a good cause. I mean, it's not often you're going to get a 4-course dinner and entertainment and more for $50. So I hope you come out and do that. You could scan the QR code on the screen there, or you could follow the link that I posted earlier to their Facebook page and go to Eventbrite and get you some tickets. That'll be fun. We're going to talk with them on tomorrow about that anyway. All right. Kevin said, where did it sing? Hopefully you all watched the BS in House Finance yesterday. Staff was on fire. I did not. And this is the problem. Here's can I bitch a little bit for a minute? This is part of the problem with if there's any minor problem with the system of governance we have, it's the fact that who's got time to sit around and watch the legislature debate all day while they're trying to get work done, right? We get the highlights. We get, it's one of the reasons why we rely on the news media, and it's why the news media has such oversized power in these discussions, is because they shape the narrative on what we're actually learning, because most of us don't have time to sit around and watch these things happen all day. So frustrating. Kevin said that was actually the reason that he took his name off of that opinion piece, because of Chuck Kopp's position to try and position it as trading tax revenue for the PFD. Good for you, Kevin. Good for you. I mean, it's obviously, it's, like I said, it's a brilliant piece of maneuvering on Chuck's part. Anyway, maybe Kevin, if you want to call in and give us a rundown of what happened here this morning, you can feel. Actually, I guess I'll have to let me turn my stuff on here. Let me turn my. I was going to connect the phones and I didn't. I had a bunch of I had to reboot like 4 times this morning. Something was going on and it was not loving me. So let me see if I can get get my phone connected here to the system, and we'll get it going on. Oh, he just dropped me a link in the chat room. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm going through my phone stuff here. Okay. If Kevin, if you want to call in and give us a rundown on this, I'd love to hear what happened. I was not watching. I'll be honest, I was not watching. Because I mean, I have a day job. I guess that's the bottom line there. But I would love to hear what was going on. Chris said he watched it. He said it was very entertaining. Very entertaining. We'll see what's going on. Okay. Dang, we already got through the commercial break. How did that happen? All right, well, let's get back to it. Here we go. It would be easy if they had a YouTube channel like everyone else's, Joel. I still don't think I would spend my day watching it. Do you? Even if it was on YouTube? I mean, I know how to get there. Do I need YouTube to do it? Probably not.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay, welcome back. Thanks for coming in and joining us. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Mia Costello is going to be joining us in hour 2, representative from District 15. We'll see what see what she has to say about all the madness that's going on out there. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. I just missed that. Okay. I just had Kevin McCabe. Rep Kevin McCabe is calling in, so we're going to get to him here in just a second. Hold the line for a sec, Kevin. All right. So we were talking about the Alaska legislature and the fact that they are underwater by a significant amount. And what does it mean for us here in the future? And what is the different tax that they're taking on this? Well, the Senate is bound to determine that we're probably going to have a tax. That's pretty much the way things are probably going to go. Now, will it be this year? I don't know. The long and the short of it is, at the end of the article, they talk about Gary Stevens had said that the Senate majority adamantly opposed using the CBR to balance the budget, but yesterday he suggested that now appears inevitable for the current fiscal year. Which, to me, is, if that's what has to happen, that's not a bad thing, because it means that the minority will have to have some kind of seat at the table, and they might be able to make some headway on the size and scope of the budget. But we're going to have to see. But Kevin McCabe asked me in the chat room this morning if I had seen what happened in House Finance yesterday, because apparently Representative Will Stapp was on fire, and we'll see what he has to say. Kevin's going to give us an update on it. Good morning, Kevin. How are you? All right, let me try this again. Apparently, my chiz is not working. Can you hear me, Kevin?
I can hear you now.
Okay, hold on a second here. I'm gonna call you right back. Apparently, my system was not connected here. This is the best part of flying by the seat of your pants, is when all that stuff goes on like that. Let's get Kevin McCabe back on the phone, see if we can get it to actually work as intended here this morning. Hey, there we go. Okay, we'll do that.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Sorry about that. All right. So you asked me if I had seen yesterday's House Finance debate, because you said it was fire. hopefully in the good way. Give us a rundown of what was happening. I don't think most of us, probably 90% of us, 99% of us maybe, were busy working and didn't watch the House Finance Committee meeting. So tell us what's going on.
Yeah, so we're doing the same thing. I mean, I have committees going on, and there's a committee that two committees I have actually while House Finance is going on. So we watch it as we can. Our staffers typically have it on in the office, and continually watching the other committees, including finance. And I kind of came in on the part of this, and the last part of it, and I've seen the clip, and I actually watched it on the TV in the office when it was going on, and they're discussing a budget. And I can't remember, frankly, if it was the CS1 for the 26 budget or the supplemental budget. But at some point, there was a discussion in the original budget before it got to this, the CS. And so they must have been talking about the supplemental budget, because at one point there was a discussion in the budget about going into the CBR, just like you said, which would take a larger vote and would involve the minority. And it was taken out of the budget. And then yesterday, Andy Josephson was trying to put it back in, which of course takes the entire finance committee to vote on, right? And Will said, I have to ask you this question, Mr. Chairman. This was taken out of the last budget. You took it out. You took this out of the CS, because that's what happens is the committee chair and his staff design a CS, and then they all vote to accept it or not to accept it. And he said, you took this out of there, Mr. Chair, and now you want us to put it back in? Why is that? And Josephson couldn't answer. And at the end of the day, he refused to answer. He said, I don't want to go down that path of my discussions that I've had with the Senate majority. And then at the same time yesterday afternoon, actually before that, there was a Senate majority press conference where Bill Wielechowski and Gary Stevens are talking about exactly what you just said, is going into the CBR for a CBR draw to pay off fiscal year 25, essentially. So it'll be interesting to see what they think. And they're just acting like the House minority is going to go along with it. Frankly, they're acting like the Senate minority is going to go along with it too. And I don't know that that's true.
This is a golden opportunity, Kevin. I mean, if they do try to use the CBR for a draw, it gives the minorities in both chambers some leverage to make some changes. Now, do you have a hit list of things you'd like to see changed, or things that might possibly be looked at if they come to you hat in hand to say we need a vote from the CBR to make this work?
Yeah, well, I personally do, and I've been very vocal about this with my caucus. I personally have a hit list. Cut the freaking budget.
No. I'm convinced. They're convinced. Sean McGuire says very clearly, we couldn't possibly cut our way to we just couldn't possibly cut our way to balancing the budget. Now, there's no comment about cutting some of it to help balance the budget. There's just no way that we could cut deep enough to balance the budget. So that means forget about cutting. I mean, that's the implication here. Since we couldn't possibly cut our way to it, then we should just not cut at all.
They say that out of one side of their mouth, and on the other side, they have put in $41 million worth of ads. So cut those first. All those ads that you just put in there, cut those. And the BSA, the $1,000 BSA, sorry, that has to go. Major school maintenance, we need to, that's important. So maybe we need to look at that. But there are so many things that they have put in that budget. That's a start. I mean, that's an absolute start. Cut the budget. And I don't know. It's so frustrating to watch this kabuki dance. And then, And then Chuck Kopp gets on our op-ed somehow. It'd be an interesting question to ask how that happened to your next guest. But I never, as soon as he was on there, I was off. I told them immediately, take my name off. And in fact, I wrote the initial essay I wrote, and then they modified it after they took me off. So, and I suspect, and I don't know for sure, but I suspect that that's why there are others that are not on there.
Right, because this was him being able to play both sides. This was him being able to have his cake and eat it too, in saying he stands with the minority on this, yada yada yada. But then to frame the argument as he doesn't want to trade taxes for PFD, which is not what happened. That's not how it really works, right?
Yeah, and there's no possible way that, I didn't even really read that part. In fact, I was so frustrated, I just kind of glanced at the op-ed when it came out in ADN and didn't even bother. I just wouldn't be on there. Why would we allow Chuck Kopp to reestablish his Republican bones by putting him on an op-ed with us?
Yeah,
I just disagree with that.
And just to be clear, that wasn't something he said in the op-ed. That was something he said in this article later on. That in this article from Sean McGuire, he was quoted here as saying he didn't believe it. But again, this has been the whole problem the whole time. This sentence right here, Kevin, encapsulates the whole problem with what's going on and why this. I agree with you. This is more like political kabuki theater. Lawmakers broadly say deep spending cuts are simply not possible after years of flat budgets. They keep saying things like that, like flat budgets, and you keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. I mean, the budget has continually grown. How could you possibly make the argument that it's a flat? I don't understand. How could you possibly make an argument that it's a flat budget every year? And even if it was true, and even if it was true, does that preclude, even though they say deep spending cuts are simply not, does that mean that we just stop looking at cuts and efficiencies?
Right. I mean, do you remember when I first ran and there was the whole Walker,
right,
and the legislature, we cut the budget and Natasha, we cut the budget 44%, or I mean, it's like, I don't understand how they can do that. Has the budget been flat? The governor will tell you it's been 1% to 2% over his tenure as a governor increase. And maybe certain parts of it have, and maybe we're talking operating versus capital, and you could be talking UGF versus DGF. I mean, there's 100 different ways to put it together, but at the end of the day, 10 years ago we had $17 billion in our CBR. Right now we have $3 billion, and they're talking about half of it. They're talking about taking half of it, of the $3 billion that we have right now. It's actually 2.8, and they're talking about going after 1.4 billion. I will tell you, we looked at the budget yesterday. My office did. I happen to have just a fabulous person working for me that was a finance staffer years ago. She said we're $1.9 billion, $1.9 billion upside down in the budget that they looked at yesterday. 1.9 billion.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. They're soft selling it when they're saying, "Oh, it's only going to be 200 million this year and another 500, so it's only 680 million." It's not really that. It's $1 billion. Come on, stop blowing smoke up my skirt and telling me that it's I mean, it's $1 billion. And it's insanity. And you're right. That's how they do it. They parse it out to say, well, what I meant was it was DGF or spending, or maybe it was UGF, or maybe it was just capital, or maybe I just want to know, what was the total spend? What was it the year before? What was it 5 years ago? You're telling me that it's been flat funded for years? You and I both know that is total poussoir at this point. Right. That is complete and total crap. But that's the argument, and that's the reason why they say we just can't possibly cut.
Yeah, and if you really want to look at where they're going with this, you need to look at the Senate press availability yesterday. I think it started at 1:00-ish or just before 1 and went to 1:30. It should be on KTOO. It was videotaped. I watched it in my office, and I couldn't believe some of the things that the Senate president, and I like Gary Stevens. He's a nice guy. He used to be one of my professors in Kodiak for English history, but he and Wielechowski and Senator Tobin, they're all talking about taxes, taxing the oil company, per barrel tax credits, You know, and they believe that Alaskans are going to be okay with some sort of income tax, sales tax, some sort of tax on the people.
Right.
And I don't, if they want to continue to spend like this, I don't see a path forward without that. I just don't.
Kevin,
So
we're up against the break, and I can hold you over if you have time, or we can let you go. But I'll give you a chance here to give me any final thoughts for this segment, one way or the other.
well, it all goes back to the fiscal policy working group. I mean, if you want to get Republicans on board, as Carpenter and I said, and Mike Shower said, and Shelley Hughes said, if you want to get Republicans on board, there has to be key components to resolving our fiscal crisis, and they include a constitutional spending cap, constitutionalize the PFD. They include possibly revenue measures. I get that. We may have to. The bind we're right now, we may have to go down there. But it also has to include budget cuts. There has to be budget cuts, and you can't be talking about a $41 million add to the budget out of one side of your mouth, and then talking out of the other side of your mouth about going into the CBR and drawing out savings. You just can't. And I don't think either minority will put up with it. Just my opinion, not speaking for everybody else, but it's going to be a struggle one way or the other, and we need to hold the line, frankly.
Kevin McCabe has called in for us this morning, our guest. We're going to continue here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show continues. We've got Rep Mia Costello coming up here at the top of the hour, and we'll be back. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
All right. Kevin, I don't know if you want to hang out with us or not. I just wanted to give you a chance to escape if you needed to. Otherwise, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I actually have a 7:30 meeting, so I'm gonna have to
that's
slam
fine.
out of here.
That's
It's a
fine. Yeah.
Valley delegation meeting, but here's the deal. You said something a little bit earlier, Michael, about working stiffs can't continually watch, and I mean that's why you pay us. That's why you vote us to go down there to represent you. But I will tell you, there was a big kerfuffle with that House resolution on. That we signed on to the other day that talked about Canada, and people don't understand the strategy. There was a strategy. We did that intentionally, and whether we did the right thing or we did the wrong thing, I put an amendment in there that tried, maybe wasn't strong enough, but it tried to take Alaska off the table as a bargaining chip for Trump. It tried to tell Canada, hey, look, don't use us as a pawn, because we're not a pawn. You actually owe us a great deal, Canada. Alaska has put more into our relationship than Canada has, and you owe us a great deal. And if you're going to try to use us as a pawn and shut down our borders, maybe you ought to rethink that. That's what we tried to do. And of course, one of our members got on social media and said we're all un-American because we did that, which was frustrating. And it blew up in Must Read. And of course, all the keyboard warriors get onto the keyboard and they start hammering us. And I get that. But, if you have a question about it, if you have a question about the strategy, and the strategy was deeper than that, it involved protecting some of our members that were signed on to it and that sort of thing. If you have a question about the strategy, then call us. Call me. My number is all over the place. I'm happy to talk to anybody at any time about the strategy. I get that you don't always know it, but getting on social media and just hammering your warriors when we're down here working for you, I think is frankly, it's why Republicans are in this situation. is because trying to hold us accountable on social media. You never see the Democrats do that to each other, and so it's a bit frustrating, and I'm
It
feeling
is.
a bit beat up. So
Well, and I definitely can understand that. I mean, I saw what you were trying to do with your amendment and everything else. I guess my main question to you is, if you got the amendment passed, did you vote yes for it after the amendment was passed simply because you had the amendment, or were you trying to offer political cover for something? I mean, what was? Because I've had things where I've done the same thing. I've moved an amendment on an ordinance or whatever in the assembly, and then voted against the main bill, even though the amendment that I put forward had passed, simply because I still disagreed with. I mean, I made it lesser, less bad, but I still voted against it. Was there a reason why you voted for it, even after amending it?
sure, and that is the question. So I felt like I put the amendment in, and maybe I drug some of my caucus along with me because of that amendment. And yes, we ask that question all the time. Should we be making a bad bill better? But in this case, I felt like there was a way to take Alaska off of the playing board, to take Alaska off as a chess piece off of the chessboard with that amendment. So, and like I say, I don't know if it's strong enough. I suspect that the resolution is going to go nowhere. I don't think the Senate is going to take it up. And frankly, I heard a little whisper going around the House that Josephson was going to object to it because of my amendment. And he was told not to remove his objection because they would see that my amendment was taken out of the bill in the Senate. And to a certain extent, I voted for it because I said, really, okay, go for it. Let's watch how that happens.
Right.
So yes, I voted for it because my amendment was in there. And I know I didn't have to do that. And maybe some others, maybe that was the wrong way to go, but it was going to pass anyways. There was no two ways about it. So,
Right.
So what do you do? Do you vote for your amendment? I guess I felt strongly enough about what I did, that I felt it was enough, that I voted for it.
Right.
And time will tell,
Well, and I mean, I don't disagree with Frank, as far as, people calling each other out on socials and not having conversations or whatever. It's the attack. And he says, that's because you like to eat your own. You're the Lynx party. And this is the problem with the Republicans for years. I've often said they circle the wagons and shoot inward, at each other. They've been infected by the libertarian disease of, you're not libertarian enough, you're not Republican enough, you're not conservative enough, instead of finding the positives and moving on from there. But, well,
right, and it's frustrating. It can be, and you have to grow thick skin pretty fast down here and just shrug it off. But
yeah,
kind of.
All right. Well, Kevin, thank you for calling in. I appreciate you being part of it today. Appreciate you calling in and joining us today. Thank you.
You bet, Michael.
All
Talk
right.
to you later.
Appreciate it. Kevin McCabe, our guest here on the program, as we get ready to jump back into it. Okay, here we go. We're going back. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do it.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Okay, we're back. Welcome back to the program. We've been talking about this article in the ADN, where they're talking about there's just not enough money. Just not enough money. It's shocking. We just discovered that we're short of money. Which anybody who's been a student of this history in this legislature has known for many years, that this is what's going on. The highlights of the article, to me, are this. There's a couple different sentences. One was that leading members of the Senate majority have signaled support for both appropriations this year, both appropriations being the school funding and the dividend. And they have also signaled that they are all about taxes. Hoffman has said, Lyman Hoffman is quoted as saying that new revenue measures are among the majority's top 3 priorities. And he said the House may oppose new taxes, but he asked, if not that, then what's their solution? What's their solution? Now, nowhere in here, because later on it goes on to say, don't forget, lawmakers broadly say deep spending cuts are simply not possible after years of flat budgets. I mean, how they can come up with the whole idea that the budget has been flat, and then, when they say, notice how it's worded. I just want you to pause for a second here and stop what you're doing and listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. Lawmakers broadly say deep spending cuts are simply not possible after years of flat funding. The implication there is that precludes any cuts at this point, because why bother? Because deep cuts would be what would be necessary to bring the whole thing in line, but they're simply not possible, so why bother? I mean, there's not even incrementalism in play here. They're not even going to cut a little bit. So they immediately look to the revenue side of it. Now, whether that's revenue through new taxation or whether that's revenue through taking the PFD, it don't matter. They're going to spend it all. They're going to spend it all. They want to take the dividend. They want to take the dividend down. Now, the House is not stupid enough to zero out the dividend. If they eliminated the entire shortfall, they'd have to shrink the dividend down to about $570. Josephson said there's virtually no support in the House for a $570 dividend. He said instead we think $1,000 is fair for your supersized PFD. $1,000. That would still leave a hole, by the way. That would still leave a $150 million hole by their reckoning. And that doesn't include defined benefits or anything else. That's just the school funding. $150 million deficit. How are they going to fill it? And speaking of schools, I wanted to get into this earlier, but I just didn't have a chance. There's a new group called the 907 Initiative. It's a newer group. It's been around for a while. Aubrey Weber is the executive director, and he's been getting a lot of ink lately, a lot of press. He was the one that helped organize that 600-person, town hall that wasn't a town hall. That was more of a protest. That had the empty chairs for Nick and Dan. They've got a new commercial out, and the new commercial targets specifically a couple House minority members, specifically for their position on school funding. And the verbiage on this is amazing. I'm going to play it for you. We're going to say, so here's the ad that's now being aired in the Anchorage area for the 907 Initiative. We're going to take this apart a little bit. Here you go.
Notice to Anchorage parents. Without state action, the following programs will be cut from Anchorage schools next year. All middle school sports, high school hockey, swimming, diving, and gymnastics, and Ignite. Hundreds of teachers will be laid off and class sizes will increase. Republican and Democrat legislators have come together to reverse these cuts. But just 2 Anchorage House members, David Nelson and Mia Costello, voted against our schools. Tell Rep Nelson and Rep Costello to stop playing politics with our schools and reverse the cuts. Paid for by the 907 Initiative. Aubrey Weber, Executive Director, approved this message.
Stop playing politics with our schools. You first. I mean, I love how they go through all the programs that are being cut, all of which, by the way, all of those decisions are the Anchorage School Board are the ones that decided which programs to cut. So that they were the highest visibility programs, et cetera, and hundreds of teachers are going to lose their job. You realize that when they talked about this, and they actually snuck this into a couple articles, that there are a bunch of unfilled positions, and that was the majority, the lion's share of the 300 positions that they were talking about, or 350 positions. Almost 300 of them were empty already. So who's really telling the truth here? Who's really telling and they voted to cut. You got your $1,000 spending. I mean, what more do you want? How are Mia Costello and David Nelson a threat now that you've passed your bill and it's in the Senate? How are they a threat to you? This is just straight up an attack on two of the more conservative members of the minority in Anchorage, and they're using the argument that it's school funding to get the job done. They're lying to you, folks. Come on. Are you not seeing it? Are you not feeling what's going on? Are you not seeing the overall picture here? I mean, the overall picture of we're going to be doing, we're going to be looking at new revenue measures. If that's not their solution, then what is their solution? We're looking at we couldn't, deep cuts are simply not possible after years of flat. I just love this whole thing about flat budgets. I mean, all these things that they're talking about, they are lying to you. And I would love to see the math on how they figure that the budgets have been flat. I mean, I would love to see that math. How did you guys get there to that position? But this is the setup, folks. This is what's been coming. This is why on this program for years, we've been talking about taxes, not because we want taxes, but that it was almost inevitable. And if we didn't have a discussion to try and figure out what the best form of tax was, they were going to force the worst form of tax down our throat. We've been talking on this program for years about cutting the government. And nothing has happened. There is no political will to cut deep spending cuts are simply not possible after years of flat budgets. Therefore, i.e., we're not going to try and cut anything because what's the point? We might as well just get more money. That's the direction they're going. And then these groups out there that are like, oh, so these two people are the reason why everything's happening. Oh my God. I mean, this whole thing is just such a farce at this point. And I can see it already. Now, if they do go to the CBR, what is the Republican minority going to do? What are their priorities going to be? I have some questions. To see what they might be tackling on this. We're going to see if we can get some answers on this coming up next. Representative Mia Costello is our guest, The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Okay. And Melissa makes a valid point because the beginning of that spot, they're talking about what's going to be cut, and of course, the first thing that they talk about, of course, is the school sports, right?
Notice to Anchorage parents. Without state action, the following programs will be cut from Anchorage schools next year. All middle school sports, high school hockey, swimming, diving, and gymnastics, and Ignite. Hundreds of teachers will be laid.
I mean, that's the thing. Melissa says they act like schools won't keep the sports under their banners. That's so annoying. Hockey funding will be cut, not the sport itself. It goes to pay to play for parents who can afford it and who've been doing it for years. That's what they did in Fairbanks. They cut the funding to the programs, but the parents kept them going. David Boyle says, per board president Andy Holloman at the Anchorage School District, there are 200 vacant funded teacher positions. They may have to cut 195 of those, so no teachers will be fired. But that's not how it's phrased. That's not phrased. Bourgeois. That's what it is right there. Flat spending. You keep using those words. I don't think it means what you think it means. I mean, what? What? I mean, this is Bill says, I think we need a study. Well, I think we need a study. Who's paying for these ads, says David Boyle. Is it the school districts? No, it's the 907 initiative, which is essentially a progressive arm of the Democrats and the special interests. The 907 initiative. By the way, they don't tell you, they don't reveal who funds their efforts. They're not, that was actually mentioned in the article the other day when they were talking about the 907 initiative. They will not release a list of donors. It's just astonishing. It's just astonishing, my friends. That's where we're at right now. All right, let me. How much time we got here? We got a minute here before we do anything else. If the BSA large increase goes into effect, said David, only those employed by the school districts will be inflation proofed. Yeah. Oh man. Ron said, you said it earlier, most of us are working, don't have time to watch the committee meetings or even know what the committee or what committees to watch. Those that have time, those on the government dole, usually are not involved and really don't care. Well, I think that's it. I mean, that's part of the part of the problem is that we're so removed physically from the whole process because it's down in Juneau. Even those that may want to go and attend and shake their fist, or they can't, so they have to watch it on gavel. Or we're just not paying attention, and the news media is not fulfilling its obligation to keep us fundamentally informed on this. I mean, they've just been writing about this deficit for like the last month. Before that, nobody even ever had a clue. We've been talking about it for a couple, 3 years now, maybe more. I mean, it's madness. Chris says there are many ways to fund sports without public money. ASD already has sports fees paid by families. Right, Chris, and that's what they're doing in Fairbanks. They had already defunded the sports in Fairbanks. It's all paid for by the families. If you want your kid to do it, that's what you need to do. It's astounding. All right, let me make a phone call here. Let's get Rep Mia Costello on the phone here.
Hey, Michael.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm really good. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm a little wound up this morning. I'll be honest with you. I'm a little wound up about some of the stuff that's going on out there, and
I know. I'm gonna help. I'm gonna help with that.
Oh,
I really.
You're gonna soothe. You're gonna soothe the savage beast. I mean, that's a tall order. I mean, it's a tall thing. I don't know if you've been listening to the program this morning, but did you just hear?
Not this morning.
Okay, I'll repeat the. We're just playing a 907 initiative ad that's apparently playing in Anchorage right now.
Yeah, someone told me last night about it. Okay, yeah. So what does it say?
Well, I'll play it for you at the beginning. I want to get your take on it at the beginning of the hour because I'm just shaking my head because they're calling out you and David Nelson, and I'm like, guys, the bill passed in the House. What do they have to do with anything at this point? It's going to this. I mean, what? It's pure kabuki theater at this point. But I want.
So wait a minute. You're on fire because of that, not because of this resolution that everyone thinks is anti-Trump.
Look, you know what? I barely gave that. We talked about it yesterday, but I barely gave that much thought because, hey, it's a resolution. It has no effect, right? I mean, it's like
here's the thing. I'm just going to read something to you.
Okay, well, wait, before, don't get into that yet. I don't want to repeat because we're about 30 seconds from starting the show here. So you hold the line and I'll be right back to you. You'll hear the theme music and then we're going to jump back into this because, yeah, this whole thing is a hot mess. So hold the line here. Mia Costello, our guest, The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. Here we go. Hour 2 is right now. Back with more.
Buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the great state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends, and welcome back to the program. Hour 2 of this Hump Day edition of the show, and we had a whiz-bang hour up in hour 1, including a surprise call-in from Representative Kevin McCabe. If you missed it, you can go back and listen to it on the podcast or on the replay on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you want to go. Some interesting discussions, but all about the theater, the political theater we're seeing in Juneau right now. To discuss this and more here in hour 2, we're bringing on the program our guest. Been a while since we talked to her. Let's bring it on right now. Representative Mia Costello, House District 15, joins us this morning to discuss all the madness that's happening down in Juneau. Good morning, Representative. How are you?
Good morning, Michael. I'm great. How are you doing?
You know, not bad at all. Now, you may have thought that when I invited you on yesterday that I was wanting to talk about this resolution, but that to me, that's kind of it's almost a non-issue. I know some of the people on the right are all spun up about it and everything. So I want to give you a chance first to settle that. To me, again, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, the resolution in the House that called off the trade war between Canada and the U.S. and everything else. And I really don't care. It's a resolution. It has no force of law. It's going to the Senate where it's probably going to die. To me, this is much ado about nothing. But I know that you guys have been taking some heat on this, so I want to give you a chance to kind of give me your thoughts on that before I move on to some of the other things.
Well, sure, Michael. Thanks for that. Yeah, I really appreciate being on the show. I haven't been on for a while, so I'm glad to be talking to you this morning. But first of all, you know, down here in Juneau, we absolutely support what Trump is doing. When Senator Sullivan came to the joint session, we gave him multiple standing ovations. He ripped up the 70 Biden executive orders that shut down Alaska, and we are out there really cheering on what the president is doing for opening up Alaska. I mean, you have no idea just the change in landscape because of what our president is doing. So we absolutely support the president 100%. You know, this resolution that recently passed, it's really just, you know, politics of distortion. Really, if what they say it is was supported by all of our Republicans here in the, you know, legislature, then it wouldn't be what they're saying it is. And I just want to tell you, this is a quote directly taken from Representative Kevin McCabe's amendment, you know, and he's a conservative powerhouse, really. Really want to thank him for this amendment. And here's just a quick quote from it. The Alaska State Legislature is deeply concerned by any threats or actions by Canada to shut down roads in Alaska. Such actions could jeopardize funding commitments, including those for the Shakwack Road. So, Michael, I mean, right there you can see that this absolutely is almost really it's really backing up Trump and what he's trying to do.
Right.
We have a long-standing positive relationship with Canada, and if you're going to believe what, you know, a liberal, you know, writer from the ADN is going to say about Republicans in Juneau, then, you know, well,
right,
it's just not accurate. So.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, his amendment basically said, hey, fool around and find out. You guys want to jack us around? We'll just cut all this funding that we've committed for this road. I mean, this is part of the problem. I saw that and I was like, okay, that makes sense. That's kind of, as you said, backing up the president. The problem was, Mia, and this is a Republican problem, okay? You guys continually seem to circle the wagons and shoot inward, right? So this is the same thing. It wasn't just the liberal ADN writer. It was must read and the commentary and the social medias, chastising all you guys for how dare you attack the president and all this kind of, I mean, it's a resolution, folks. It has no force of law. And if you actually took the time to read it, you'd see those things like Mia just talked about. I mean, people just getting spun up and eating their own. It makes no sense. All we're doing is hurting ourselves.
hmm Well, I can't really speak to why those articles were written, but I can say I did have some folks call me and they admitted they hadn't read it. And essentially, in my mind, it's the threats or actions by Canada that we're taking, that we're saying, look, we're not going to be, responding positively to that. And it's what, people are telling you that it says, and then they're using it to come after Republicans like myself, like Kevin McCabe, like George Rauscher, like the entire caucus. And it's not something that we like to see, of course, but we're down here, Michael, and we are trying to do our very best to mitigate the damage of a very liberal agenda. You've got a budget that they have absolutely no idea how they're going to pay for it. If you really want to be writing about what's happening in Juneau, write about what's happening in the House Finance Committee.
Right.
They are going to take your dividend.
Right.
Every single dollar of our dividend is going to go into the pockets of the liberal agenda. And that's what we should be writing about.
Right.
Michael, it's a tough job, but it's a great opportunity to stand up for Republican values. And that's what we're doing. And we're going to keep doing it.
Mia, I'm amazed that all of a sudden the news media just suddenly in the last 4 weeks has all of a sudden discovered that, oh my gosh, we have a deficit. We don't have enough money. I mean, when did this happen? And some of the legislators in their quotes are acting like, wow, we just didn't see this. I've been talking about this for years, that this is what was coming. The governor's 10-year forecast, Dunleavy's 10-year forecast for the last 5 years has showed that there's going to be a deficit. Like, how is this a surprise to anyone out there who is intellectually honest?
Michael, I really think that when you look at the budget and you look at what the House Republicans were able to do last session, we came in, the governor handed a budget to the legislature with, over $1 billion deficit. And a lot of kudos to Delana Johnson for working with the finance team and passing a funded budget that was balanced and, was really, really kudos to her. Now we have the liberals in charge. And if you watched House Finance yesterday, instead of reading a silly resolution, you would have seen that the, questions from Representative Stapp simply were responded to with dead silence from Andy Josephson. They don't know how to answer simple questions like, how are we going to fund the budget? So one version has a CBR in it, and then the next version takes it out and then adds it back in. Is it in? Is it out? You've got a full dividend, which they accidentally put in there and they don't really support. And so, that's their plan to fund their budget. It's simply to take our dividend.
Right.
And it's not right.
Well, and this has been the question. I mean, I will say that Stapp has been doing a yeoman's job in asking this question at every opportunity. How do you pay for it? And Mia, as much, you've been talking about how the liberal agenda and things like that. I mean, you and I both know, and with all fairness to you, you and I both know that this is not strictly a Democrat problem. We had Republicans in the House for years in the teens who spent billions of dollars out of the CBR and didn't blink at it. We've still got Republicans on the Senate side that are, looking at this and saying, well, we just couldn't possibly cut anything. But we're gonna come to a choke point here. We're gonna come to a crisis moment when there is just not enough money. Even if they take all of the PFD this year, we have if we fully funded everything that they have on the table right now, not including the defined benefits, the PFD would be $570. Next year, it would be gone. Next year, if they did the same thing, there wouldn't be enough to fund everything. So we're going to come to a crisis point where there is no more money. What do we do then?
Well, Michael, this is why we are poised to take advantage of what President Trump is talking about from Washington, D.C. That president, our president, is opening up Alaska for resource development. We have some of the best resources in the world. And our president is right there. One of his first executive orders was to say to the world, Alaska is open for resource development. We've got projects that have come online, and because the legislature for a little while, we didn't mess with the oil taxes. I mean, we're looking at that now, of course, because we can't help ourselves. But when you let the industry do what they need to do and you don't increase the taxes, we are seeing increased investment. We've got projects that are supposed to come online next year. And, it's the production times the price of oil, and you have got revenue coming into the state. We are poised, to be looking at a new Alaska, a new day, a new chapter, and that is how we raise revenue in Alaska. It's not by income tax. It's not by taxing the oil companies. It's not by all of these taxes. And I was in the Senate when Governor Walker tried to increase taxes on everything. I mean, every single committee meeting was shutting down a new tax idea from the Democrats. And now they're in charge, and now we're going to see their plan. And another thing, Michael, I sit on the Energy Committee with Representative Tilton, and we have an energy crisis in Alaska, and we have a natural gas situation that we have to deal with. We have not had one bill before the committee. We just hear presentations, and I'm concerned about this, but this is the liberal agenda, and this is what we're trying to counteract and offer credible alternatives. For the most part, we're not involved in the discussion. I think you saw with education, we have a lot of good ideas.
Right.
And we really weren't at the table.
Well, let me offer a counterpoint, because I agree with you that the president's executive orders were phenomenal. And opening up Alaska for resource development is key, not just to Alaska's growth, but to continued domestic national security and other things. I agree with that 100%. But here's my problem with the whole thing. If I have one problem, here's what it is. Everybody's looking to that like, well, that's our revenue solution. The problem, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, the problem is not a revenue problem. It is a spending problem. We have spent every dollar, this and previous legislatures have spent every dollar possible, and they've spent so much that it's become a revenue problem. Throwing more revenue at the issue is going to do nothing to stymie that hunger to spend every dollar. We have to get the spending problem under control, whether that's through a cap or something else. We've got to get the spending under control, because it doesn't matter if we opened up the whole state and started pumping another $2 or $3 billion in revenue through the state. It wouldn't matter, because they'd spend all that as well. Am I wrong?
You're right on target. It's, we do need to cut our budget. We need to reduce spending for our bloated budgets. And, what comes to mind, actually, Michael, is when we had to put billions of dollars paying down our unfunded liability. And what are we talking about now? We're talking about bringing back the defined benefit that's going to increase our exposure and our unfunded liability. So, yeah, I mean, we do have a lot of challenges here. And I can tell you that when conservatives are in the back of the bus, and that bus is being driven by the liberal agenda, these problems are not going to get better. They're going to get worse. But we do have a measure in the hopper for a spending cap, and we definitely need to be cutting. And I think that what you're going to see in finance and on the floor is, we're going to make attempts to reduce this budget. But it's not our budget, Michael, and it's really difficult to be sitting in the back of the bus.
Mia Costello, Representative Mia Costello, is our guest. We're up against the break. We're going to continue here in a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We continue with Mia Costello right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break right now with Mia Costello. Mia, and again, I don't want to beat up on you. I'm not trying to, but you keep going back to the liberals and the Democrats and the thing. But again, historically, we can look back, and the Republicans held control, and not you specifically, but the Republicans held control of the legislature for many years in the early teens, early teens to the mid-teens, going into the late teens. And yet that's where the spending, we burned through $17 billion in savings and in just a handful of years. And then the governor took the PFD, and then that sat around for a couple of years and did nothing before they started taking it. So to me, this is not a Republican versus Democrat thing. This is a big government spend versus what's the smallest government we can get away with kind of thing. That's the labels. It shouldn't be Democrats versus, because we got Republicans in there who would just love to spend your dividend and put a tax on you and everything else. And we've got liberals that are the same way. I mean, so it's not a party problem. This is a politician problem of what is your philosophy? Is it small, limited government, or is it government should do everything for everyone?
Absolutely. I mean, we're all guilty of it. It's very challenging. And I remember when Mike Chenault had a bill to do, and it passed, we had audits of every department on a rotating basis. When you get down here you're in the finance, I served on the finance committee in the House before, and the departments come to you and they are always asking for more. And it's very, very challenging to get to the bottom. We need a Doge. We need a group of, people to go in and start looking in depth in these departments, because finding those efficiencies is a very, very challenging. It's an uphill battle because everything's working against you. And
sure,
I do know.
That's bureaucratic. I mean, that's the bureaucratic entrenchment. That's what we're seeing at the national Doge level, where of course everybody's against waste, fraud, and abuse, just as long as it's not in my department where I might lose my job.
Right. And it's unearthing and finding where those efficiencies can be found. And it's very challenging. And, look at the president, he's finding all kinds of things, and you need the information, you need that data, and you essentially don't get it. The process, you're elected for 2 years, and then the bureaucrats are here for decades. And it's very, very challenging. I do think, however, though, I do want to say one thing about capital budgets. I like spending money where we get jobs for Alaskans and revenue generating departments. So, for example, Department of Natural Resources, when you address the permitting backlog and you invest in that department, it's generating money for the state. And then we have departments that are not generating money, but are addressing problems in our state. And so we need to be making sure those departments are more efficient, and that we're supporting the departments, especially that are revenue generating. But it's a tough challenge, and I agree with you. We're all part of that and trying to solve it. And I look forward to perhaps that philosophy that the president has about really digging in deep into what's happening into these departments, because without that information, what you do and where you cut is very challenging, because for every one person who wants to cut a program, there's 100 people who will call in, come down here, lobby for the increase, or for keeping the program.
What just to change gears here just a second, I'm hearing, and I've heard this from several people who've talked to me working in Juneau, that it looks like that the Senate is now deciding to hold all the funding bills together, and they're going to hold them all together, and they're going to keep hold of them to the last minute. Can you give me any credence to that? Are you hearing anything about that? We got about 30 seconds here.
Well, I'm not really privy to that strategy that they have right now. I mean, again, we're in the minority, and you've got Senator Shower over there and myself here, and we're working together. But they're definitely. I think the Senate is looking over at the House and thinking, what the heck's going on? I mean, the House Finance Committee is really in disarray.
Yeah. All right. Hold the line. We're going to jump back into it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe. Let's do this.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
All right, welcome back to the program, Michael Duke Show. It's a Wednesday edition of the show. We're joined right now by Representative Mia Costello. And it's been interesting, Mia, because this whole debate over education funding and everything else has sucked up all the oxygen in the room. You guys got railroaded by the majority. I mean, it's just, the minority has basically just been told to sit in the corner and take it like a man or whatever. They just basically, they're going to make the decisions. You guys had a lot of good amendments that went out. They were all riddled full of bullet holes and everything else. So here we are watching this go on, but still the left continues to fight. There's a group out there called the 907 Initiative, which is run by Aubrey Weber, who is a former ADN journalist, a writer for the ADN. And they've been doing a lot of crazy stuff in the last couple of years. They put on that big 600-person town hall that wasn't a town hall, that had empty chairs and everything else. They don't report their funding as to who supports them or who funds them and everything else, but they're out there putting commercials out in the Anchorage area right now. I'm going to play this for you, and I'm going to get your take on it. And then we already broke it down a little bit in the last hour, but I'm going to play it again because it specifically talks about you. I want to get your take on it. Here is the latest piece from the 907 Initiative that's playing in the Anchorage area.
Notice to Anchorage parents. Without state action, the following programs will be cut from Anchorage schools next year. All middle school sports, high school hockey, swimming, diving, and gymnastics, and Ignite. Hundreds of teachers will be laid off and class sizes will increase. Republican and Democrat legislators have come together to reverse these cuts. But just 2 Anchorage House members, David Nelson and Mia Costello, voted against our schools. Tell Rep Nelson and Rep Costello to stop playing politics with our schools and reverse the cuts. Paid for by the 907 Initiative. Aubrey Weber, Executive Director, approved this message.
Okay, so this
I don't know.
this deal is done, right? I mean, first of all, just your initial reaction. I just kind of want to get your initial reaction on this.
Well, I have to laugh because this is actually the first time I've heard it. So thank you for sharing it with me. It's just ridiculous. I am a supporter of education, and I just think it's them coming after me because that's what they want to do. And frankly, they call themselves the 907 Initiative. My question is, how many people who are funding this organization have a 907 area code? I bet you, Michael.
Right.
And we've kind of tried to look into this before, but the funders come from all over the country. They're writing checks to groups that are coming after Republicans just because they want to push a liberal agenda. Now,
right.
As far as education goes, I am in support of a BSA increase, and the amount that came before us on the floor was just not achievable. But we, in our caucus, Michael, when you look at the experience that we have in education, we have school board presidents. I'm a nationally recognized high school teacher. I went to public school in Anchorage, and my kids go there. But you look at our caucus and the amendments that we put forward, and it was, we had a class size reduction amendment by Representative Colomb. She wanted to reduce class sizes in Anchorage. We have these massive class sizes, and the Democrats voted against it.
Right.
And then their
right.
supporters put out stuff like this, and
right.
should just ignore it. When that comes on the radio, turn to something else because it's not true. And, they're trying to just come after people. And it's unfortunate. Well, that's just how it is.
Here's the thing. The whole thing is a lie, right? So the first thing that they talk about is the sports and the this and the that. Of course, the school board decides what gets cut, not Mia Costello, not the legislature. The school board's in charge of that. And of course, they cut the most high visibility, biggest pain points from the beginning. Then they talk about cutting teachers. Well, even Andy Holloman, the school board president, said that like 200 positions are funded but not filled, and they're going to have to cut like 195 or 200. I mean, so there's not going to be teachers that lose their job. They're going to lose unfilled positions. So again, that's a lie. And then to come to you and say, "Oh, you voted against the cuts." Or you voted for the cut or whatever it is. It's not a cut to funding. And by the way, it's already out of the House. The House has already passed it. So is this an attack on you because they think you're vulnerable and they're taking an early position on the next election? Is it because they want to force you in a veto override to have to think about it? I mean, what I mean, it's madness. It's kabuki theater at this point.
Well, one of the issues with education funding, and I've spoken to this, and there was an amendment that passed, my amendment, which is the timing of the budgets is off. And so the Anchorage School District puts out their budget, and the legislature doesn't come in. Our budget process doesn't end until, weeks and weeks after that. And so they put this out there that this is what they're going to do. And because the funding last year was one-time funding, so now they're looking at a budget that doesn't have the $680 per student one-time funding. So they put out their budget and they say, well, we're going to cut all these things. And it happens every single year. The Anchorage School District puts the parents and the students through this, and the teachers through this whole process, which is horrible.
Right.
And then the legislature comes in, and we've always funded education. And then everything, goes along, and then this whole thing happens, the next year. And so I put in an amendment that said that the governor should introduce a separate education funding funding bill. Then we would pass it by March 15th. Now, I don't know if that will stay in the bill, but this is a problem, and every year we go through it. Do you know, Michael, I have never had one school board member talk to me about education funding for the Anchorage School District, and they don't have to call me, because as soon as they put out their budget where they say they're going to cut the most, middle school sports, Michael, they are asking parents to pay for their child's sport, and then the coaches oftentimes are volunteers, and then they cut that because they're saying the legislature isn't funding their budget.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Well,
it's frustrating.
That's what Fairbanks is doing already. Fairbanks has already cut all those extracurricular sports, and it's all funded by the parents. I mean, that's the thing. That's what they're doing already. And if you think that funding timing is not intentional, because the same thing's happening in Fairbanks, the same thing's happening in the Matsu, the same thing's happening all over the state, where they've aligned their budgets for the school boards so that they all are due before the legislature gets through with deliberation. And then all of the contracts for the teachers and everything else have a requirement that if their position is not fully funded, then you have to issue them a pink slip so that they can wave that around in the front of the public and say, look, we're going to be laid off. And it's all working as intended, Mia. That's all intentional.
And the students are the ones who are the disadvantaged in this situation, because I'll give you an example. My sister-in-law, she's a teacher. She's a high school teacher. She was teaching in a rural community. Her first year teaching, she called me up and she said, Mia, I don't think they like me here. And I just got a pink slip. I said, Greta, I hate to tell you this, but this is what happens in Alaska. Our budget cycles are off. And then she gets hired by another rural community. And so the students get to know their teacher for 1 year, and then all of a sudden the teacher moves to another district, and the students are disadvantaged by that, because it's important that there's trust in your teacher and that you have that relationship in the school. And so having teachers stay in the schools for as long as possible, that's good for our students. But nobody cares about that. They just care about the maximum impact budget that could get parents and students and teachers panicked. Michael, I have people coming to visit me, and they are panicked over this budget. And I have to say, listen, we support education. We all want to support education with the BSA increase, permanent. Now, the number that came across the floor of the House, that was not achievable. And what you're going to see is it's now in the Senate. They'll have those discussions and hopefully keep some of the things that we put in the bill and send it back to us. That's the process. And I don't think that some of those cuts were serious.
Right.
I think that they were doing them for maximum impact.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's pain points. That's the goal. The goal is to make the parents scream and squawk about losing all these things that are high visibility. And my question to you is, when these parents come in and they're all panicky about the budget and everything else, are you asking them, do you care about achievement? Do you care about the scholastic achievement? I mean, if the budget's there, I mean, aren't you just as concerned about where the education falls on the achievement scores when we're 51 out of 53 and we're spending almost more than any other state in the nation on it? I mean, shouldn't that be of concern? Shouldn't the metrics matter in that regard? Oh, no. I saw an opinion piece headline the other day. It's unfair to talk about performance when we're underfunding the schools. Wait a second. It's not unfair. It's part and parcel of the problem. It's all holistically, it's all part of the same issue. We have to ask ourselves, are we doing it the right way? That's what we should be asking ourselves.
Michael, we had dozens of amendments that addressed so many issues that would have improved education for our students in classrooms and outcomes, supporting all kinds of options for education. And again, I'm going to go back to the class size amendment. You know, Representative Colomb introduced an amendment to reduce class size to say that in Alaska, if you're in elementary school or middle school or high school, these are going to be the caps for your class size. And it failed. It failed, Michael, because apparently that's not what the Democrats want. And I'm not sure why it failed, but maybe somebody can explain it to me. But class size, lowering that class size makes it much better for everybody. I had teachers from Fairbanks come talk to me, a science teacher. She said, Mia, I can't teach a science class because there's too many kids in the class, and we are doing some things where, safety now is a consideration. So you have a certified science teacher not teaching science because the class is too large. And, Michael, amendment after amendment went down. I mean, a few did pass, but for the most part, we're not a part of the discussion, and we have a tremendous amount of experience in our caucus. I'm very proud of that, and our voice was really, really not there at the table, which is unfortunate, very unfortunate.
It's it's frustrating because we can see, like I said, we can see the intentionality of this whole thing and of how they're doing it. And if you pull back the curtain and realize and do the math and realize that this whole thing has basically been organized to put this kind of undue pressure on the legislature through the public and everything else, with the pink slips and the timing of the budgets and everything, it basically, again, continues to obfuscate the real problem, which is we are not teaching our children well. We've got places like Mississippi that are spending a fraction of what we're spending, and they're seeing much better results. They're seeing a huge increase in reading. In fact, they're one of the top in the nation now in fourth grade reading levels and some of these other things. But instead of asking the question, how could we do better with what we have, or what did they do that we can emulate to make it work? The answer is more money. That's the answer every time. Oh, if we just had more money. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. If you had more money and we're just pouring that money into doing exactly what you're doing now, you'll get exactly what you've got. Why aren't we asking questions about how about changing some fundamental basics in how we're teaching?
Well, you're right, Michael. I mean, a teacher, an effective, qualified teacher is really very, very important to the outcomes. And, another thing, too, that I want to bring up is, I was a classroom teacher. I've been in the classrooms, and I've seen so many excellent teachers. I mean, really, we have some excellent teachers in the Anchorage School District. And then we look at our test scores, and our test scores are, they're certainly getting a lot of national attention, right? Well, we also have tests where not all the students are taking the test, okay? So we have a test that's out there, and a small portion of students take the test. We had a discussion about the assessment, tools that we're using. There's a test out there, the MAPS test. Parents like it, teachers like it, the students, we get results immediately where your child is. It charts the progress, which is what we want. We want to see progress. Like wherever you are when you go into that classroom, let's say you're in third grade and you're at a certain level in reading. We want progress, and that's the outcomes that we're looking for. We did support the Alaska Reads Act, and the governor supports that. That was a good thing. But we really need to really look at this entire system and say, how can we do this better? Everyone needs to be at the table, Michael. And right now, we're not at the table. We do have some really great ideas that are used in other states that are proven to be effective. We're turned down, shot down. I don't know why, but you have to ask the question: why are we not all at the table trying to make improvements for really one of the most important things in our state is education. It can change a person's life. If 3 years of a teacher that doesn't, where you don't see a progress in those classrooms, students cannot overcome that. It's very challenging. If a child isn't reading by third grade, they spend the rest of their education career struggling and suffering and really trying to hide that they can't read. We need to be helping students. We need to put the students first. We need to give parents choice. We really need to look at this seriously. And it was disappointing that those amendments, many of them didn't pass. And it was kind of surprising to me, but, Michael, I'm not sure what the agenda is, but I guess we're going to find out.
Mia Costello is our guest. We've got one final segment dead ahead with her, and we're going to talk with her about the overall state of the budget and more when we return. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Dukes Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll be back with more and Mia Costello in just a moment.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break right now. Mia Costello is our guest. Mia, look, you were a teacher. You understand the classroom, but the topology of the classroom and working with the students and everything else. If you were queen for a day, what is your answer here? What do you think would make a difference in this? If you could wave your magic wand, how do we fix these abysmal scores? 51 out of 53. We're actually going backwards. We spent more and we're going backwards with this. How do we fix this? As a former teacher, somebody who's been there, done that, got the t-shirt, what do we need to do?
Okay, well, number one, you have to deal with attendance. You can't expect great scores when the kids aren't in the class, right? That's really kind of, to me, a common sense thing. So you have to deal with attendance. You have to incentivize districts and schools within the building that actually have the kids in the classroom. Then you ask yourself, well, how do you get the kids in the classroom? And I can tell you how you do that. You have engaging hands-on lessons where students understand the relevance of what they're learning to the real world, okay? So, for example, when I was teaching government class, I did not open up a textbook and say, read chapter 1 and answer the questions at the end of the chapter. What I did was I was in Juneau. I brought those kids to the Alaska State Legislature. I designed a unit called Follow That Bill. I gave them a pin that they put on their shirt in case they wondered what they were supposed to be doing. And they followed bills. They testified. We had a mock House Finance Committee debate live on public television where the students in the class sat at the finance table and they debated the budget. That was as real world as I could get for those students. And the reason I was able to do that, Michael, is because I was supported in the building by the principal, and we do need to support our teachers who have, innovative ideas. Another way that you do it is you have career and technical education. Students know they're in school because they're going to eventually have jobs, right? I'm a huge supporter of career and technical education. As far as the rural communities go, if I was queen for a day, I would change the system to instead of semesters, you'd have trimesters. And during one of those trimesters, I would send students to a rural hub. I would pour money into a career and technical, hub. Students would stay there in dorms or whatever, and then for a semester or trimester, they would be there learning welding, learning shop, learning AutoCAD, whatever, technical skills would be, good for them to learn to go back to their communities. And then while they're there, the teacher from Montana who was hired to teach in rural Alaska would go home, have, their time back home so that they can adjust. And, we're asking a lot, but that's what I would do. And I feel like there are a lot of things we could do, Michael. Those are just a few of my ideas. But my caucus is filled with people who have so much experience in education. And if we had a chance to really, be listened to and have our ideas supported because they were good ideas and not just shut down because we're Republicans, and that's frustrating.
Right.
I've had so many education bills. I had a constitutional amendment to forward fund education shot down. And, that is a huge problem, is the timing of the funding. But again, I have seen firsthand how talented students are. They are so capable. And if the system were to change to support those students, we would see a huge difference. Many of my former students are in the building. And I see them, and they're successful. One of them owns a coffee shop down the street. Another one is, assistant attorney general. The way that we ran this program, the assessment tool was meeting a standard. It was written out. The students knew what was expected. If they didn't get it the first time, they got a chance to do it again, because it's not how fast you learn, Michael, it's that you learn. And
Right.
so we were able to pass that assessment tool to the community and train community members how to assess student work. There's a lot of things we can be doing. And I thought, the program I taught in was designed by Fortune 500 companies who said, the education system community isn't producing students who are ready for the job environment. They're not ready for work. And so they came up with this model of education, and it's a lot like the middle school model, just applied to high school. Team teaching, authentic assessment, as real life as you can get. I hate to say this, but one of the best, the FAA, look at how they run it. When you get in an airplane, that pilot has been trained, okay? And it's authentic assessment. You have to go up and do the steep turns and do the stalls and do the landings. You have to show that you know how to fly that airplane. When we send our kids to school and they show us how they understand, that's when we're going to start I think we're going to start seeing better test results.
Mia Costello is our guest, House Representative for District 15. We're going to get into the overall budget and questions about, how do we pay for it and everything else. That's coming up next. Please like and share the show. Like and follow the show page wherever you're watching it right now, Facebook, YouTube, or Rumble. You can hit the share button and then like and follow. Let's get to it. Here we go. Right now.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Huh. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
All right. Continuing now, Representative Mia Costello, our guest, District 15 in Anchorage. And the big question, of course, with everything that we've been talking about, we've been on education quite a bit here this morning. But the biggest question is, Mia, the size and scope of government, the size and scope of the government that we have right now. And the biggest question that I think Representative Stapp has been doing, and McCabe and several others on the House side and Shower, et cetera, on the Senate side have been asking the big question. How do we pay for it? And who pays? I mean, that's the other question, is who pays? Is it just lower and middle income Alaskans paying the most because their PFD has been taken? Is it a broad-based tax? Is it a cut? How do we fix what's coming down the road? Because the tracks are out. The train is hurtling towards the chasm of a fiscal cliff, and we could either apply the brakes, or I guess the other option is to just keep shoveling coal and hope we can jump the gap, which I think is wishful thinking. But what in your mind, how do we pay? Who pays? How do we pay? What do we do?
Well, Michael, that really is the question, and I'm just gonna tell you my thought process here. That is the question that had to be answered when we became a state. That is why it took us so long to become a state. And we've all heard about the effort, Mike Stepovich, Governor, Wally Hickel, going to DC, trip after trip after trip to try to become a state. And we did not have the population to tax in order to pay for government. So what were we going to do? And we looked at what we had. What do you have going for you? I mean, it's like in a job interview. What are you going to highlight that you have going for yourself to make this work for yourself? And the thing that Alaska has going for us is we have God-given natural resources in abundance. And we have been thwarted, and we have been prevented from realizing our true value to our own population and to the country and the world, because we have not been able to develop our resources, whether it's permitting that takes so long that you can literally raise a family and they can leave the home by the time, and you're still trying to get your permit, right? The frustration is incredible, and we just accept it. We accept it now. Well, that's just how it's going to be. And our president is out there saying, we're not going to accept it anymore. We're not going to accept these decades-long permitting processes that, that really get the same result. We want responsible resource development. I'm not saying we don't want responsible resource development, but we have to have the resource development. So, yes, that is the answer that our state pioneers came up with, right? Why aren't we logging? Why aren't we mining more? Why aren't we developing more? That was the answer that our founders came up with. So that's going to always be my go-to answer, Michael, unfortunately. But right in front of us, without being able to do that, we're waiting. Thank God Trump's in office and can help us with that. It's very exciting, which was why those articles were so disappointing, whatever. But we need the process to work for us too. We need information about where all the funding is going, where the money is in the department. That is hard to do when we're not getting audits. I really was happy to support Mike Chenault's audit bill. We got information. Their audits are expensive, and we don't have enough people to do the audits. That's another problem we face, Michael. We're looking at as far as how things are working in the state, people aren't wanting to work, or there aren't enough people filling these jobs. So we don't have the information that we need to really make the true change. And you're seeing it with President Trump. Other presidents, I'm sure, I know, Bill Clinton wanted to reduce government, spending, and he tried. So it's not just Republicans who want to do this. We all want to get rid of waste and abuse and fraud. And it's President Trump who's showing us how to do this.
Right.
He's showing us what you need to do this, and that's what we need. We probably are going to keep going along at the same path unless we have that kind of information at our fingertips. And a shout out to the House Republican finance team. They're not given a lot of advance notice when things are coming. They're not necessarily involved in what's happening at the table, and yet they go to the finance table every day and they ask questions, and they're trying to do the best they can. But it's a shift in direction. It's a course correction,
right?
And I think that we're going to see. We need a team of people looking in depth into what the departments are doing. That's what we need.
Well, I mean, I would agree that auditing, that maybe zero-based budgeting. I mean, there's a lot of different options there that could make these things a lot better and make them happen. But I think, again, the crux of it that I keep going back to, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but even if we did get more revenue, if we developed more, we opened up the whole state, we did all that, the problem lies, and this is a problem that Hammond discovered early on when we got that first royalty payment back in 1969, 1970. It was nearly $1 billion. The state's budget at the time was like $160 million for the whole state, and they burned through $1 billion like it was a house of fire. The spending problem started there, and that's why they instituted the permanent fund and the dividend and everything else, was to try and put a cap on that and get the people involved. But we've still got this spending problem. So even if we generate more revenues, unless we address the spending component, we're just it's Parkinson's principle. Government will expand to spend all the money in the room, essentially. We've got to get a handle on that, and we've got to cut back on some of our spending. We've got to do some reduction. Maybe we can't cut it all. Maybe we can't cut back to living an equal, but if we're going to add revenues, there needs to be commensurate cuts. Am I wrong?
You're right. We need to live within our means, and we need that budget to be something that's not just growing every single year. And it's a math problem. You've got 21 in the House and 11 in the Senate, and there has to be a desire, to make those reductions. We did do the percent of market value, which was essentially a cap, on spend, so that you're spending less than you earn every year, so that you're continuing to grow that nest egg. That was, I think that philosophy is one that I'm glad that we have that philosophy on the books, but essentially it's not enough. And I am, Representative McCabe has introduced a cap measure, and we've had spending caps in the past. We have to be able to, to stick to it.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what they're trying to shatter the POMV model now by combining the funds. That's the next plan. To get the access to the corpus. That's the next step. By shattering that and saying there's just not enough, even with partially because of the $8 billion in ad hoc transfers and other things, they've created this crisis to where, now we've got to combine the funds so that if there's not enough, we can draw and it'll come out of the corp. Again, it all goes back to that spending. We got 2 minutes here, Mia. I want to give you the final bite at the apple and the last word. But I mean, if we don't get this spending under control, my final thoughts, it won't matter how much revenue we generate, because they'll just spend every dime of it anyway. So final thoughts, Mia Costello, Representative District 15.
Well, first of all, I'm really proud to be serving as the, leader of the House Republican caucus. I think the values that we are putting forward and what we believe in is what the majority of Alaskans want. We want a quality education. We want to live within our means. We want to develop our resources responsibly. And I think, what you're going to see this session is the liberal agenda is not what's best for Alaska. And I appreciate all the support that we're getting here, and we look forward to growing, being in the majority. So I want to thank you, Michael, for having this show and for having me on.
Well, I appreciate it. We need to have you on more often. I know you've got a lot of strategery going on in the background where you're trying to not let too much intel out before, big meetings or big floor sessions or anything else. But I think it's important that people get a chance to hear what your thoughts are, especially as a leader, and what we need to do. So we'd like to invite you to come back to the program, more often to share with us, because, without this, people are, like you said, people are kind of in the dark. The only information they're getting is what they're getting from the news media, which seems to be getting all their information from the press releases from the majorities, right? It doesn't seem to be a lot of minority press going on into the local media at all.
Absolutely. I mean, this resolution that says we're concerned about threats or actions by Canada to shut down roads, and then we're being told that is somehow against the president. It's ridiculous, Michael. Again, I appreciate being on, and I'm really, really proud to be in this legislature. All
right. Well, Mia Costello, thank you so much. Hold the line for just a second, Mia. Folks, we got more coming up tomorrow. We're going to be talking to Chris and Jim about the Kenai Peninsula Fairgrounds fundraiser gala this weekend. You want to come out and see me there? I'll be emceeing that event. And then we're going to talk with Sal Mercogliano from What's Up With Shipping on YouTube about the Jones Act and LNG tankers. That's coming up tomorrow. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. All right, Mia, I just want to I always like to give the guests one final bite at the apple here after we get off the radio. It's just you, me, and 70 of our closest friends on the internet right now. So any final thoughts here before I let you go?
Oh, well, first of all, I just want to, your listeners are some of the, most steadfast Republican, conservatives, in Alaska. And I know that it's frustrating to see the Republicans in the minority, and we need your help. Anything you can provide, as far as calling in to committees and, sending an email and pushing back against this liberal agenda. And Michael, just one final thought about this. So we have a natural gas crisis in our state, right? And the House Energy Committee has not had one bill or one solution outside of increasing renewables. That is their vision for Alaska, is solar panels and wind farms. When we have a gas line that we should be building, I mean, seriously, you're going to see a resolution, because that's one of the things we can do. Representative Rauscher and I are introducing a gas line resolution. But this is their agenda. It's to let our state falter when we should be thriving. And so any support as far as, messaging or calling in or keeping us accountable. One of the things, we need to be accountable to you. And so we need to be talking to you and hearing from you. So appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mia Costello, for coming on board. And like I said, we'd love to have you on again here soon. Keep us in the loop. If you got anything you need to talk about, let us know. Send me a text and we'll get you on to talk. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks so much for calling in and being part of it today. We appreciate it. All right, folks. That wraps for today. We got more coming up tomorrow. Again, with Sal and with Chris and Jim. Local stuff and national stuff. It should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Please like and share the show if you haven't already. Man, there's only 28 likes, and there was like 79 people on Facebook alone, Facebook and YouTube alone. So please, before you leave the show this morning, would you like it? Would you share it? Would you do all that? Let's get more people involved. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.